What's up, everyone? This is the third devlog entry for Crazy Color Clash, which just hit the App Store. Go ahead and check it out on the iOS App Store. You can just search for Crazy Color Clash, or you can go to crazycolorclash.com. Today we're going to dive into finishing up the MVP of the game. So this is adding the last menu items. This is adding a single player practice mode. This is adding, tweaking a couple of the last minute settings, and this is adding all the power-ups that would initially come with the game. The first set of these videos, this is the third devlog, is about 10 hours of footage that I cut down to about 20 or 30 minutes. But there's about 90 more hours of footage that I did not actually record, which was me finishing the game. So this is the last of the footage that I have of me actually building the thing. It's been really fun. It's been a fantastic experience to learn from. I'm really excited and hopeful that you'll join me in downloading the app and giving it a try, sharing it with your friends. So let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so today we're going to get started with overhauling the score screen. I wanted to be able to make sure that there were more details on the score than just what your actual score was. Wanted to tell people how many correct taps they had, how many incorrect taps, but then because it's a two-player game, I also wanted to make sure that both your score and the opponent's score showed up. This game is really unique in the fact that the screen real estate is split between the two players, and so normally you would be able to show tons of details to a player or the user. Here, we're not allowed to do that because half of the screen is taken up for the other player, and it would be a bad experience to pass the phone back and forth to see who got what score. So I wanted to make sure that both players could see both scores, both correct, incorrect, and missed taps, so that they could quickly compare and contrast without needing to flip the phone physically back and forth to each other. So we went ahead and added it for both players, rotated the orientation of player 2 so that it was facing the top of the screen, and that way both players would very easily be able to see exactly what was going on. We also wanted to actually disable the buttons, as you can see here, once it's pressed so that you couldn't continuously press it. We make sure that the game timer resets that so that the player can actually press it on the very next turn, which in this game, everything is turn-based with a second interval. So every time we tap, we want to make sure that we lock the game, or rather your side of the screen, so that you can't continue to tap and get wrong or correct points. And then on the very next second in the game, we go ahead and reset that so you can tap again. This makes sure that we can keep a consistent score. And as you can see here, totally wipes out that to-do item, which was ultimately a bug where you could get more points than you're supposed to or continue to throw your score into the ground. So then I took some time to convert my project from an Xcode project to a Swift project. The biggest reason that I initially wanted to do this, as I read online, is that to be able to run the Swift command line tools, you had to have an actual Swift project. And this would be things like testing your Swift package. And I wanted to do this on CI so that I could quickly know if something was wrong and I wouldn't have to rerun my test suite every time locally. As you can see here, I'm getting tons of errors, and that's because this project isn't intended to be a Swift package. Swift package is really just meant to be imported back into another project. Because mine is a standalone app, I actually didn't need to do this at all, and so I would eventually be rolling all of this back. But it was an interesting learning opportunity, and I would use the concepts learned here later to create a separate Swift package for the sound library that this game uses, and I would actually be able to create that as a separate Swift package and later on import it back into this project. So really this is just a lot of trial and error and learning and reading on what it takes to make a Swift package. Again, ultimately rolled it all back after realizing that this just wasn't going to work out. The project isn't built to be a Swift package. It does need to be an Xcode project, completely a standalone project which can be executed and not just a loose library of code that could be reused. So here I'm adding the practice game mode. This is going to be the single player practice game mode, which is ultimately going to allow for anybody to just play solo. I wanted to make sure that the game had something to offer for somebody if they were just going to do it themselves. The obvious answer is that this game is a two-player head-to-head game, but in the off chance that you're just by yourself, you're standing in line somewhere and you wanted to give it a shot, I wanted to be able to make sure that there was an offering for somebody who's just playing solo. So went back and forth and made sure that both the two-player head-to-head worked correctly and the single-player worked. because what we're ultimately doing with single player is we're technically just hiding player number 2 and their score and all of their buttons and things like that. So all the code is still running behind the scenes, but the player 2 just gets hidden. Here I'm actually adding the power-ups. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, we've got blackout and confetti listed there. Eventually these would be turned into buttons. So this is the last piece of the game that really needed to get added before I felt that it had kind of everything that I wanted to add, at least at a very first pass level. So the power-ups are going to be things that are going to help you win the game. So this is ultimately something that will distract your opponent, will help you get more points, will take away points from your opponent, things of that nature to give you an edge when you're playing. So we went ahead and added a set of milestone score markers that once you got to, you would be awarded a power-up. As you can see here, the counter is going crazy at the bottom of the screen, and finally fixed it here. Essentially, once you have a certain number of correct taps, we award you a power-up. At this point, I needed to make sure that people knew how to play the thing that I was building. I obviously knew how it all worked, but other players new to the game wouldn't necessarily understand it right out of the box. So this is me figuring out how text works in SwiftUI. It's actually kind of interesting to orient and align all of these different text boxes. SwiftUI allows for all sorts of different configuration here, but making sure that it all looks right is kind of tricky. And so this is a lot of back and forth, trial and error, attempting to get the text to show up spaced the way that I wanted. So we've got here the concept, an intro to the game. We say how scoring works. We got some bullet points there, how power-ups work, and then eventually at the bottom we've got the ready button. So really just a lot of styling. We went ahead and switched it to the actual buttons here. And eventually I would come back and make all of the styles consistent just in a little bit in the next part of the video. But this way it gives somebody a really easy way to see how to play the game. It's a single view so that they can jump in quickly to the game once they have the basic concept down. With this game, obviously, as I mentioned before, it is 2 players, so we went ahead and had the how to play section flip back and forth so that both players could see it before they started. Here's the graphical update. We're just making sure that it works for everybody. We went ahead and updated the colors, and I would continue to do this throughout the entire game, and eventually adding the buttons for the power-ups and moving them to the top of the screen. The power-up location would change quite a bit throughout the remainder of building the game. We went ahead and also made the name of the color much easier to read here by putting it in some kind of capsule button, as you can see there, and giving everything a background and a border. And really just kind of cleaning everything up so that it would be really easy to play, to catch everything that's happening on screen, and adjusting, A/B testing where the best place is for each button, for the score, how big the text should be, and things of that nature. And there we go. That's the 3rd entry in the Devlog series for Crazy Color Clash. The game is finished. It does look much better than what you saw today. It has about 90 hours of development between the finish of this video and the actual release. So lots more went into this. There's 9 new power-ups that weren't even talked about in this video at all. There's all sorts of new graphical updates, lots of bug fixes, new ways to play the game, and things of that nature. So I'd really hope that you'd go download the game, crazycolorclash.com, or search for Crazy Color Clash in the iOS App Store and give it a shot. Tell your friends, buy a few power-ups if you really enjoy it, leave a review. But I will go ahead and do another video probably that will document how I did the in-app purchasing, how I actually uploaded this to Apple servers and to the App Store to release it, all the marketing tidbits and stuff. So if you're interested in those aspects of the game, make sure to comment below and let me know, and I will do another video on that. So if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe to me. We'll see you next time.